Welcome to the very first event for the University of Alabama program in sports communication. My name is Andy Billings. I'm the director of the program. We're really excited for this turnout. We're really excited to give you a really A-list speaker here today. The format's going to be where I'll interview him, ask him some questions for about 40 minutes, and then we'll turn over the last 15 or 20 to you. So if you have a question that you would like to ask Mr. Bodenheimer, you will have that opportunity to do so. Now, before we get started, I wanted to say a couple things about the APSC. Some people are thinking this is a new academic major. It is not. We currently, at least, do not have a major in sports communication. What we have with this new center is a way of fusing all the different sports work that happens here at the University of Alabama into something where we can hold events like this. This is our first event. We may have others that appear before March, but we already know our second main event that is slated is an opportunity for student research in sports. We have a symposium for student research in sports communication that is on March 20th. Dr. Lance Kinney right here is the director for that symposium, and we also have some handouts here. So if you do work, and that's not just papers, that's projects, whatever it is. If you do work in this area, I encourage you, take a look, see if this is an opportunity for you to come and either watch what other people are doing or take a part in it yourself, because it's there for the students. Now, moving on to our guest speaker here, what I can tell you is, when we were first brainstorming this idea for the Alabama program in sports communication, one stop on the way was visiting Coach Malmore and talking about different partnerships with athletics. And we said we really want a big name out of the gate. And I said, I really want to be able to get a big name here. I'm talking, one of those people who are voted most powerful people in sports. A Dick Ebersol at NBC or a George Bodenheimer at ESPN. And then Coach Moore said, well, 2 years ago, George Bodenheimer was here for a football game, and I think he liked this place. I think he wouldn't mind coming back. And that really was, it didn't take me long to say yes. Let's see if we can do this. And very fortunately, George Bodenheimer has agreed to come back and speak today. He's the longest serving president at ESPN, serving for 13 years before moving into the executive chairman role last year. He's been with the company since just 1 year in. He was there in year 2 for ESPN, so he can really talk about the evolution. And that's what we'll get to here. And I think it's fair to say, if you're talking about ESPN, in that first paragraph on Wikipedia, or whatever it is there, you might be humming the Sports Center da-da-da, but you also have to think about this man. So at this point, I would like to officially give an Alabama welcome to ESPN's George Bodenheimer. George, first of all, thanks for being here. I think this is terrific, and I think you can tell that the love of sports is alive and strong here in Tuscaloosa.
Yes, it certainly appears that way. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure one question you get a lot is, how do I get involved? What's your story? How did you get into ESPN? And let's roll it back 31 years ago, because I think it's interesting how you started. And you've got a story on how that evolved over many decades.
Well, I graduated from college in what seems like an eternity ago now, 1980. And coming out of college, I was interested in sports. So I wrote a letter to every Major League Baseball team. The letter basically said, you need me in your front office. And there was 28 teams, I think, at the time. I got 27 we don't think so's, and one interview out of it. So I went down for my interview in Philadelphia. I was all excited. I didn't get a job. They gave me a tie. The Phillies had just won the World Series that year, so I guess they had a lot of ties left over. And so I was given a tie, no job. I drove back to Connecticut, where I'm from. And so I was trying to think of what to do. I was looking at Madison Square Garden, other Boston Garden, and I thought that would be interesting. I couldn't even get interviews in those places. A friend of my dad's was in the television business, and he said, well, there's this new 24-hour sports network. It's actually in Connecticut. I don't know much about it. It's cable. It's, I don't really know if it's going to make it or not, but I could probably get you in to see the human resources director. So I said, well, that would be fine. I'd like to do that. So a couple of letters, and maybe 30, 45 days later, I managed to get an interview with the human resources director. And I use the term interview lightly. I think it lasted about 3 minutes, and I'm not sure he looked up at me during the whole time that I was standing in his office. And he informed me that I would be qualified to be a driver in the mailroom. And he asked me if I'd mind shoveling snow, etc. And said we might have an opening next week, and we'll call you, maybe. So I was driving back the 60 miles back to my home, thinking, what am I going to tell my dad? He's going to ask me about how the day went, how my big interview went at ESPN. And we went out and actually went out for a beer and a cup of chowder at one of our favorite restaurants. And he gave me what I think is the best advice I ever received. He said, if sports television is a business that you think you'd be interested in, then you should absolutely take the job if offered. You're making a career decision, not a money decision. And so fortunately, I took his advice, and they called me a week later, and I accepted. And 2 days later, I was delivering the mail and moving boxes and driving Dick Vitale back and forth to the airport, and all the things that you did, when you were in the mailroom there. So that was my start at ESPN. I know many of you were thinking about going into the sports business or the entertainment business, and I really encourage you to think about making a career decision and not a money decision. It's about getting your foot in the door and then showing what you can produce and accomplish after that. I think it was, as I said, I think it was the best advice I ever received.
Absolutely, and we've certainly gotten to the point now where I don't think anyone would argue ESPN is not a channel. It's not even a series of channels. ESPN is a brand. So what do you think the ESPN brand is, and how do you manage it?
Well, it's that's a big question. There's a lot in there. I mean, first of all, we consider ourselves a multimedia company now, a worldwide multimedia company, not just the United States. Brands can often be confusing if you're not a marketer, which I wasn't, and there's all kinds of fancy terms and books and all that. But to me, it's pretty simple. A brand is what you think of when you think of anything. It can be a person, a business, a university. What comes to mind? Quality, integrity, humor, however you think of an entity is the brand. So for ESPN, we like to think of our brand as sports, which is what we do, with authority, because we work extremely hard to get it right. Every run, every hit, every error, touchdown, score, we want to get it right. We want to pronounce names correctly, and we work hard at every detail. So sports with authority and personality, because the early days of ESPN, we didn't know if anyone was watching us. We didn't have any ratings. We were basically the laughing stock of the television business. And so our people, really Chris Berman and Bob Lee and others were some of the first ones to just have fun on the air. And I know that may seem unusual to you if you've only ever grown up with ESPN and its entertaining style and anchors joking with one another and the funny commercials, etc. But in 1979 and 80, sports were 3 minutes, done either before or after the weather on your local news. That and some live games on weekend afternoons, that was it. So ESPN having fun on the air, the anchors joking with each other, devoting an hour to sports highlights every day, several times a day, that was all new. And that personality is really what a lot of people look to ESPN for. We know that. People want to have fun. Sports should be fun. So we try to have fun on the air. And we try to take our sports seriously, but we do not take ourselves too seriously. We try to have fun and never forget what it is we're doing. That's how I think of the ESPN brand.